What if I told you that one of the oldest stories in the world, a story written over 4,000 years ago, is not just a dusty old myth, but a powerful message about love, loss, fear, friendship, and what it really means to be alive? What if everything you ever wondered about immortality, about why we suffer, about why we search for meaning, was already written long before our time in the story of a man who seemed to have everything, yet still felt empty? This is the story of Gilgamesh, and once you hear it, you may never look at life the same way again. Long ago, in a land where cities rose from desert dust and the gods were believed to walk among men, there was a king named Gilgamesh. He ruled a great city called Uruk. Its walls were so tall and strong that they became a wonder of the world. Gilgamesh was no ordinary king. The people said he was 2/3 God and 1/3 man. He had strength beyond human limits. His wisdom was vast. His name was known across lands. But Gilgamesh, for all his greatness, was not a kind king. He did what he wanted, took what he pleased, and ruled with no mercy. The people cried out. They begged the gods to help them, and the gods listened. To answer their cries, the gods created someone who could stand against Gilgamesh, someone just as strong, but pure of heart. His name was Enkidu. He was not born in a city or raised by humans. He was born in the wild, shaped by nature itself. His body was covered in hair, his skin tough from the wind, and his spirit free like the animals he lived among. He drank from rivers, ran with gazelles, and had never heard a single word of human language. He lived in peace with the earth. But then humans noticed him. Hunters saw him freeing animals from their traps. To them, he was a threat. So they went to Gilgamesh, and Gilgamesh made a plan. He sent a woman named Shamhat, a temple priestess full of wisdom and beauty, to go to Enkidu and bring him into the world of men. She found him near a spring. She sat with him. She touched his hand. She spoke gently to him. She gave him food and wine. And something inside Enkidu began to shift. He started to understand things he never knew. He felt emotions he'd never felt. His wildness faded. He became something new. No longer just a creature of nature, but a man who could think, feel, and love. But when he tried to return to the forest, the animals ran from him. He was no longer one of them. The wild no longer welcomed him. So he followed Shamhat to the city of Uruk, not knowing that his destiny was waiting there. As Enkidu walked through the city, he was amazed by the walls, the temples, the noise of people. But beneath the beauty, he saw sadness. He saw fear. He heard whispers about the king, how he ruled without mercy, how he took young brides before their husbands, how the people had no voice under his power. Enkidu was filled with anger. He had never known such cruelty, and he knew he had to stop it. One day, Gilgamesh went to take another bride, but Enkidu stood in his way. He blocked the path and said no. What followed was not just a fight. It was a clash of two great forces. Gilgamesh, the mighty king. Enkidu, the untamed spirit. They fought like storms crashing into each other. Neither gave in. The ground trembled beneath them. The people watched in awe and fear. But something happened during the fight. In each other, they saw something deeper. Gilgamesh saw that Enkidu was not just strong. He was his equal. Enkidu saw that Gilgamesh was not just cruel, he was searching, alone, broken inside, and something unexpected was born between them: respect. From that day on, they became more than friends. They became brothers. Their friendship changed Gilgamesh. For the first time, he wasn't just thinking about power. He wanted something greater. He wanted to make his name live forever. So he decided to go on a journey into a sacred forest where no man dared to enter. In that forest lived a terrifying guardian named Humbaba. Gilgamesh said they would go there, fight him, and carve their names into history. Enkidu warned him. Humbaba had been chosen by the gods to protect the forest, but Gilgamesh's desire for glory burned too strong, and Enkidu, out of love and loyalty, agreed to go. Before they left, they prayed to the sun god, Shamash. They asked for protection. The god warned them of the dangers, but gave them his blessing. And so the two friends set out, side by side. They crossed deserts under the burning sun. They climbed mountains and crossed rivers. At night, Gilgamesh had terrible dreams. Enkidu listened and tried to explain them. He believed the gods were sending warnings, but they did not stop. They walked forward, together. When they reached the cedar forest, the silence was heavy. The trees were massive, older than time. The wind whispered secrets. Then Humbaba appeared. His eyes glowed like fire. His voice roared like thunder. Even Enkidu, strong as he was, felt fear. But Gilgamesh rushed forward. They fought with all they had. The battle shook the earth. Humbaba was stronger than anything they had faced. But then the god Shamash sent mighty winds to weaken the beast. Enkidu attacked. Together, they brought Humbaba down. Humbaba begged for mercy. He promised to serve them. He warned that if they killed him, the gods would be angry. Gilgamesh hesitated, but Enkidu urged him, "Do not show mercy." And so Gilgamesh struck the final blow. Humbaba died. The forest went silent. They had won, but something sacred had been broken. They had killed a creature chosen by the gods, and the gods do not forget. They returned to Uruk carrying the sacred wood. The people celebrated. Gilgamesh and Enkidu were praised. But above the clouds, the gods gathered in anger. They said one of the two must be punished, and they chose Enkidu. At first, nothing happened. But then, slowly, Enkidu fell ill. His body grew weak. The great warrior who once ran wild with animals now could not stand. He cursed the day he left the forest. He cursed Shamhat for changing him. He cursed the city, the journey, the gods. But in time, his heart softened. He remembered love. He remembered friendship. And he blessed Shamhat. He forgave her. Then, in pain and sorrow, he died, and the world went still. Gilgamesh was crushed. He tore his clothes. He covered himself in dust. He could not stop crying. He wandered into the wilderness, broken. The king who had faced monsters could not face this. His best friend was gone, and now he was afraid, not of beasts, not of war, but of death. For the first time, he realized he would die too. He couldn't accept that. He couldn't stand the thought that one day he would vanish. forgotten. So he set out on a new journey, not for glory, but for answers. He traveled far, beyond the edges of the known world. He crossed deserts, climbed cliffs, and passed through lands no man had ever seen. He met a woman who lived at the edge of the earth, and she told him to turn back. She said, "All people die. That's what it means to be human." But Gilgamesh kept going. He crossed the waters of death and found the one man who had been made immortal, Utnapishtim. Utnapishtim told him a story. Long ago, the gods flooded the earth. He built a boat and survived, and the gods gave him eternal life. But he said Gilgamesh would not be given the same gift. Still, he offered him a test. Stay awake for 7 nights. Gilgamesh failed. He couldn't even last one. Out of pity, Utnapishtim told him about a plant that could restore youth. Gilgamesh found it, but while he was resting, a snake stole it. The chance was gone. Empty-handed, Gilgamesh returned to Uruk. He stood before the great walls he had built. He looked around at his people, his city, his work, and then he understood. No one lives forever. Not even kings, not even heroes. But the love we give, the stories we leave behind, the kindness we show, that is what lasts. That is what makes a life meaningful. And so, the man who feared death learned to live. His name lived on not because he became immortal, but because he changed, because he loved, because he searched. And even now, thousands of years later, we still tell his story, because it reminds us that being human is not about how long we live, but how deeply we live, and how bravely we face the truth of being alive. Enkidu was created by the gods to balance the power of Gilgamesh, the mighty king of Uruk. He was wild, untamed, and full of strength. He didn't know fear. He didn't know pain. He had never tasted death. But after walking side by side with Gilgamesh through battles and adventures, his body began to weaken. The life that once moved like fire within him started to flicker. Slowly, his strength faded. Enkidu, once fearless and free, now lay on a bed he could not rise from. And though Gilgamesh tried everything to save him, nothing worked. His friend was slipping away, and he could do nothing but watch. Enkidu, who had once run with animals and challenged fate itself, now looked at Gilgamesh with calm in his eyes. He had stopped fighting. He blessed Gilgamesh's path and quietly accepted his end. For the first time in his life, Gilgamesh felt powerless. He had never been afraid before. He had faced monsters, gods, and the unknown. He had always come out victorious. But now, he was facing something no sword could kill: death. He held his friend's hand as the light left his eyes, and something inside him broke. The great king who had stood above all men now knelt in grief beside the one soul he truly loved. The palace fell silent. The air grew heavy. A stillness deeper than any night covered the halls. The man who had once laughed at danger now wept like a child. Nothing could prepare him for the loss of Enkidu. And in that unbearable silence, a terrible truth echoed louder than any war cry. Death is real. It does not care how strong you are. It does not fear kings. It comes for everyone. The city of Uruk mourned alongside its ruler. Ashes were scattered through the streets. People cried openly. Songs of sorrow filled the air. A grand funeral was held, one greater than any Uruk had seen. Enkidu was buried with honors fit for a god. But even the gold, the chants, the thousands of mourners were not enough to comfort Gilgamesh. Nothing was enough. He couldn't accept that Enkidu was truly gone. How could someone so full of life be taken by death? If death could reach Enkidu, who had the strength of a wild bull and the favor of the gods, then what hope did he, or anyone else, have? That question haunted Gilgamesh. It rooted itself deep inside his soul and would not let go. And in his pain, something shifted. He stopped caring about ruling. He stopped caring about fame. The fear of his own death wrapped around him like a cold shadow. He couldn't rest. He couldn't sit still. So he made a choice. He left his throne behind. He gave up his crown and the comfort of his palace. He put on rough animal skins and walked out of Uruk alone. He became a wanderer, not to conquer, not to explore, but to find something far greater than any treasure, eternal life. His journey was hard. His feet blistered. The sun burned his face. His hands, once smooth and noble, became cracked and rough. He no longer looked like a king. He looked like a man who had forgotten how to sleep, how to smile, how to live. But still, he walked. Every step was fueled by fear, by grief, by the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a way to escape what took Enkidu. He followed ancient rumors to the ends of the world, where the sky touches the earth. There, hidden far from men, lived Utnapishtim, the only human the gods had made immortal. When Gilgamesh finally found him, he begged him for the answer. He told him everything: his pain, his loss, his fear of death. He fell to his knees and asked, with all the strength left in him, "How can I live forever?" Utnapishtim looked at him with eyes full of sorrow. He told Gilgamesh that immortality was not something to be won. It was not a prize or a secret that could be given. He told him the story of the great flood, when the gods, angry with humanity, decided to destroy the world. But the god of wisdom, Ea, warned Utnapishtim and told him to build a great boat. He did, and with it, he saved his wife, his family, and the animals of the earth. For 7 days and nights, the storm raged. The earth was swallowed by water, and when it ended, Utnapishtim offered thanks. Moved by his faith and obedience, the god Enlil granted him and his wife eternal life, not as a gift to be passed on, but as a one-time reward. Still, Utnapishtim gave Gilgamesh a test. If he could stay awake for 7 days and 7 nights without sleep, he would prove that he was worthy of something beyond ordinary life. Gilgamesh agreed, but his body, broken by grief and travel, couldn't keep going. Before he knew it, sleep overcame him. He lay down and slept deeply. When he woke, Utnapishtim pointed to loaves of bread, one for each day he had been asleep. They were moldy, old, and untouched. Each one proved his failure. Gilgamesh had not just lost the test. He had lost the dream he clung to. Crushed, he prepared to return home. But Utnapishtim's wife took pity on him. She whispered a final hope. There was a plant deep beneath the ocean, a plant that could restore youth, a plant that could give him a second chance. Gilgamesh dove into the sea and found it. His heart soared. He felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. He didn't plan to use the plant on himself right away. He thought maybe he'd give it to the old people of Uruk first, test it, then take it later. But on his way back, while resting by a spring, a serpent crept up and stole the plant. Gilgamesh woke to find it gone. He saw the snake slither away, leaving behind its newly shed skin. He didn't chase it. He didn't scream. He sat there in silence. And in that moment, something inside him finally settled. He understood what he had tried so hard to avoid. Death is a part of life. No one, not even kings, not even the strongest or the wisest, can escape it. Immortality does not come through magic. It doesn't come from fighting the gods. It comes from what we leave behind. The love we give, the things we build, the memories we create. When Gilgamesh returned to Uruk, he was not the same man who had left. He had no plant, no secret, no eternal life. But he had something better. He had clarity. He stood before the great walls of his city and truly saw them for the first time. Every stone had been placed under his rule. Every street filled with people was part of his legacy. He looked at the children playing, the families laughing, the workers building, and he realized this was where immortality lived, not in the body, in the stories, in the love, in the life he had helped shape. He climbed to the top of the city walls and gazed over Uruk as the sun set. The wind moved gently around him, like a whisper from time itself. He was no longer the proud king who had tried to defeat death. He was a man who had walked through pain, through fear, through the unknown, and had come back with wisdom. His body would one day turn to dust, but his deeds, his words, and his love would echo through generations. The people of Uruk would tell his story. They would remember him. They would pass on his lessons. And so, Gilgamesh found what he had been looking for all along. Not the kind of immortality that lives forever in flesh, but the kind that never dies in memory. That's the lesson his journey teaches us. That's what the epic has carried for thousands of years. The truth that no one lives forever, but everyone has the power to leave something behind that will. The story of Gilgamesh is not just about gods or kings. It is about what it means to be human. It reminds us that we all lose. We all hurt. We all fear the end. But we also love. We build. We leave pieces of ourselves in the hearts of others. That is what lives on. That is what truly lasts. That is what makes a mortal soul unforgettable. And in the end, Gilgamesh, broken, humbled, and wise, found peace not because he escaped death, but because he stopped running from it. And in doing so, he finally became immortal.